Here to deliver, making Central Oregon an outdoor industry hub, is Gary Bracelin. Gary was the founder of Bend Outdoor Worx in 2014 and is a founding member of Oregon Outdoor Alliance. He's kind of an outdoorsy guy, if you can't tell. Bend Outdoor Worx was the first independent outdoor accelerator in the U.S. to help mentor and grow early and growth stage outdoor companies. BOW was born from Gary's knowledge and inspiration to help Bend become a hub of the outdoor industry and capitalize on its unique abundance of outdoor recreational activities. He saw a need to support local companies trying to make a mark in this industry and help support this growing economic sector in Central Oregon. Applications for BOW's next cohort are open now through December 15th, and without further ado, I'm going to hand the mic over to Gary. Take it away, Gary.
Thank you, Shannon.
You got it.
Appreciate it. It's kind of a crazy, can everybody hear me all right? Kind of a crazy night to be up here with the announcement of Roger leaving and all. Little closer, Matt. You like that? Okay. Anyhow, with Roger leaving, quite a momentous event tonight, and it's really cool to see all the outdoor folks here tonight to support it too. Before I get going, I just want to thank the whole EDCO group for allowing us to get up here and tell our story about BOW. I don't think Oregon Outdoor Alliance or BOW would probably exist if it wasn't for EDCO and Roger Lee and the whole crew there, Elise and Aaron and everybody that supported us all this time. But EDCO was really the spark that started the flame of the Oregon Outdoor Alliance and Bend Outdoor Worx to start with. So hats off to them. Thank you very much. Roger, we'll miss you. I deal with a lot of economic development councils across the state, in other states, and there's nobody like EDCO. They really set the bar for every other economic development organization I've ever worked with. I also was just having a conversation today with a president, founder of a company that EDCO helped to recruit here. And his comment to me was when they were looking at all the different places in the United States that they could open their headquarters, that EDCO and Bend was just heads and shoulders above everybody else. So thank you, Roger. You've built a wonderful organization here. And thank you for the whole crew's support. And let's see if we can get interim off of John's title as soon as we can, please. So, by the way, Roger, we've got a couple gifts for you here. Parting gifts, I guess they call them. Is that what they call them? And in case we've never given you one, but hopefully we have and you've already worn it out. But this is from the whole outdoor community. For all you, okay, good. So this will be a backup, but from the whole outdoor community, thank you for all you've done. So yeah, teamwork. Would you take that to Roger, please? Perfect. See, this is why we make it work. Yeah, being an outdoors guy, this whole social distancing thing came to me pretty naturally. And so being in a crowd like this is again, a bit of a shock to my system. I mean, I took 6 feet social distancing to like 6 miles. So, this is a bit of an adjustment. So when I was asked to speak tonight, I don't really like to speak about myself. And I said, well, we'll talk about, the companies and Bend Outdoor Worx and OOA and the new cohort we have open. And they're like, well, just tell some stories. So that's what these are. I started putting together some stories, and then I realized these were too long. These are totally inappropriate. And these are just better left for another time. So I did kind of narrow it down to just a few good ones here. But yeah, start off with, again, thanks to EDCO, thanks to all the outdoor folks for showing up today. I still can't believe they handed me a mic while I was drinking. I mean, it's pretty brave. So my name is Gary Bracelin. I am founder, co-founder of Bend Outdoor Worx and the Oregon Outdoor Alliance. I guess you'd call me a serial entrepreneur. I'm a fourth generation Oregonian. So I grew up exploring all of Oregon's natural wonders with my grandpas and my dads, and they were showing me all the best, their secret fishing and hunting places, and experiencing everything from the Rogue River to the Columbia to the Deschutes. I spent many, many days riding in the dunes and the logging roads and the mountains of Oregon, eluding certain authorities from time to time. That was just part of it. I learned to surf on the Oregon coast growing up in my teenage years. And learning to surf on the Oregon coast and surfing in the winter, it can be a pretty humbling, fearful experience. I learned to scuba dive on the Oregon coast in 6 inches of visibility with gray whales swimming in the same area, and could go on with stories about other sea lions and creatures we've met in the ocean. So I guess it's fair to say I've always had a bit of a sense of adventure. And, if the weather was gnarly and rough, that made it all the much better. That was just that much of a better experience. And it was that moment when you maybe felt the most alive. Cheers. So I grew up in Coos Bay, Oregon. And in the era that I was growing up, there was this guy down there. His name was Steve Prefontaine. Some of you have probably heard of him. He was a pretty big deal. He was really one of my first heroes, and one of the, maybe not the most accessible character, but I could see him. I could touch him. He was accessible to me. And he kind of showed me that from little old Coos Bay, Oregon, that there's a whole world out there, and showed me grit and determination, and inspired me to go out and see the world, and just my whole approach to how you go about life. And he opened up the world to me in places like Munich, Germany. I still remember staying up late at night to watch him in the 72 Olympics, and didn't turn out the best for him that year. There was a lot of things overshadowing track at the 72 Olympics, if you remember, the Israeli athletes and all. And that's still it's a place I've stopped many times when I've been in Munich and had a day to kill. Not only the connection to but just the whole 72 Olympics. It's a very heavy environment, and means a lot to me. And I remember when we lost and it was devastating to a young kid. And I remember going to his funeral, watching him run a few weeks before. But he left behind this icon that he was associated with. And, it kind of taught me the power of a brand, as I had the Nike brand burned into my psyche at a very young age. I was that kid that I was down at Bay Area Athletic Supply every other week, a couple times a season, checking out all the new colorways of the latest Nike waffle trainer. I remember, seeing the waffle trainer in the colorway he was supposed to wear at Montreal. And so, very early on in my life, the power of a brand and those icons were really burnt in for me. Then there was the brands. Then there was the Oregon Pioneer outdoor brands. There was Pendleton, there was Danner, there was White Stag, there was Jansen. And they built my loyalties up, understanding that they made product for people like me to withstand the toughest conditions that we have. We have very varied conditions here in Oregon, so my loyalty for the outdoor industry and these brands was really kind of seared into me, and I think it's a large part of what fueled me towards where I am today. So I went to school for entrepreneurship, and yes, I can spell it. I married Jarrell, so I had to practice that one too. Straight out of college, I was given an internship at a ski resort on Mount Hood, so my first job was in sales and marketing and events at a ski resort. It was my dream job. I thought I'd died and gone to a Warren Miller film. It was here that I met some of the ski industry's royalty and legends. I met people like Bill Johnson. Anybody know Bill Johnson in this crowd? Hopefully. Thank you, Mike. First American to win a gold in the downhill from Sandy, Oregon. Became friends with Bill, met people like Scott Plake, or Glenn Plake and Scott Schmidt, and saw the birth of the snowboard industry. And it was pretty much at this point, it was over for me ever having a real job. And so soon I left the ski resort and I started repping. A friend of mine who had been an artist for OP, I went to high school with him, and he started his own surf skate line. And he needed reps. And I'd always wanted to be a ski rep, but somebody either had to die or you had to spend like 20 years turning screws to become a ski rep. And so he offered me a position with his company as a rep. Took off, started making money. It was great. The company started blowing up. We went to our first trade show, and that's when I first started learning some of my hard lessons in the industry. The company started blowing up. We sold $1 million at our one trade show, and we just went to, in a quarter, what we'd done the year before. And one of my first lessons I learned is you have to make it first, okay? So we sold a couple $1 million, so that meant we needed about $600,000 to make it. So I learned all about production financing and cost of goods. I also learned sometimes the greatest artists aren't the best businessmen. Sometimes you get both sides, not always. So I continued on, and I guess my third lesson I learned was to diversify. So I picked up several different brands, started repping. Many of them started, in the snowboard industry because it was exploding at the time. And in 1988, I formed Black Diamond Marketing. It was one of the first outdoor rep groups in the industry at the time. And we grew to represent 30, 35 different lines and had multiple reps over the whole West Coast and Western Canada. I was fortunate at that time to have worked and learned from many of the industry's pioneers and legends. Still consider a lot of them friends today. And at this point, I've probably worked for over 100 companies in that industry. Some of the ones that stand out would be Sims, Morrow, Sessions, Helly Hansen, Timex, many, many more. It was about this time my wife decided we were moving to Bend, 1992. And she goes, hey, why don't we move to Bend? And I'm like, cool, but you've never been there. She goes, she's from Montana. She's like, yeah, but it's a lot more like Montana, less rain. We were in Portland, less rain, more snow. And I'm like, great, I bachelor in those days. The demo dealer days were at Mount Bachelor, so that was a week extra at home I got to stay if we lived here. And there was a lot of accounts in those days, so I said, sure, let's move to Bend. So it was a little surprising in those days that I was in the outdoor industry, and when I told them that I was moving to Bend, they're like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I'm going to work in the outdoor industry. I'm going to do the same thing. But it was like I was going off the edge of the map. And there really weren't that many people here in the outdoor industry at the time. There was a few people we'd see at, picking up your kids at school, and then you'd see them at the trade shows. It's like, yeah, see you back in Bend, but it wasn't really that much. So for about the next 15 years, I just kind of traveled, built brands on a global scale. I came home to recharge, go snowboarding, see my family. I'd stop by an EDCO event, be introduced as Jarrell's husband. And it was during that time that I was hired by Morrow Snowboards. In addition to my sales activities as a consultant, they just bought a Canadian apparel company, and they were a $50 million public company, and they're trying to merge two cultures, one from an American hard goods company, one from a Canadian soft goods company. And so I was in charge of restructuring their global sales department, trying to blend these two cultures, working with product, sales, marketing, was allowed into the board meetings. And it was during this time period that I learned a lot. Probably the biggest lesson I learned, CEOs don't have a secret book underneath the table that gives them all the answers. Nobody really does. And that the smart CEOs, what they do is they know who to ask and where to go get that information, but nobody knows all the information. So it was really an interesting process for me to see how that worked and realize that they come to people like me to get answers sometimes. I also learned that you shouldn't run a $50 million company without a CFO for a year. And I also learned to hold on to that stock for a long time because you never know when it might come back up. I also worked as CEO for COO of an emerging organic apparel company, which was an exciting time. We introduced organic apparel to companies like Patagonia, Prana, Lululemon, Marmot, Merrell, and yes, even Nike. So I got to go to Nike for a bunch of meetings and see the Prefontaine building. I was asked to speak to like 450 people there one time. It was kind of mind-blowing, but again, other stories. So as years passed, being the outdoor guy in town, I always had people being referred to me, and they'd come to me and they'd say, hey, I've got this product. Don't you think you can sell $1 million worth of it? And I'd be like, yeah, probably, but you'll be out of business in 6 months. Remember lesson 1? And so I'd tell them, you need to go see this person and this person and this person. Come back and see me in a year, and then you'll be ready for me. So, it was about this time that EDCO and the city of Bend started looking at those 5 sectors of business that Roger was talking about earlier. It was tech, bioscience, outdoor, food and beverage, and UAV, so unmanned aerial drone stuff. And they started inviting us outdoor folks to these roundtable meetings for pizza and beer. And, they were mainly brainstorming and kind of recruitment events. But it started getting the outdoor industry together. So with EDCO's blessing, the outdoor people actually took those over and turned them into the Oregon Outdoor Alliance and started making a place where we could connect and share resources and get to know each other. And so at that time, the Oregon Outdoor Alliance was born. Van Schuessler, please stand up. The first president of the organization, my co-founder. I don't know if Rob Little or Pam Stevenson or Nick Hill or Renee Patrick are here tonight, but that was the original founding board. I do see Mike Wallenfels back there from Hydro Flask, current president, so thank you for all you're doing. You guys should get involved in OOA and support it. So we ended up collaborating with EDCO, and with their support, we took over the roundtables. The OOA was born. There was a place for these people to connect and share resources, and it became a political voice for the outdoor industry. At that same time, I saw something going on in the tech industry, and that was accelerators and incubators. And I'm like, hold it. What if we took that model and applied it to outdoor products? And I took those people that I told them to go see, that person and that person and that person, we put them all in the same room. And we kind of followed that tech model, and we took all these different skill sets and we put them in the same room. And at that time, I started reaching out to those people that I'd referred them to. And I have a lot of crazy ideas. And this was one of the first ones they didn't tell me was crazy. Matter of fact, they all wanted to get involved. So I thought that was a pretty good sign. At about that time then is when we formed Bend Outdoor Worx. And my co-founders at Bend Outdoor Worx, Eric Mead, right there. Justin Ray, I think, is in the room. I don't believe Will Blunt is with us tonight, but away goes Bend Outdoor Worx, and it was kind of a beta. So what we did is we started with a little pitch day, and we had a bunch of companies come and pitch us to see if there was a need. There was definitely a need. So it's like, okay, what's next? What structure do we go to? What type of event, what type of curriculum will we have? And we talked to Dino at Founders Pad, and he kind of helped us with his insight. And I talked to Rick over at Portland Incubator Experiment, and his advice was just jump in, just do it, figure it out. Rob Little said, hey, we just want to spend, time with you guys every week. So we started BOW as a beta project, and it was launched in the Founders Pad offices at night, the first cohort, and away we go. So our goal in the beginning was just to help more outdoor industry companies become sustainable and successful, and we felt that in doing so, we could make Bend a hub of the outdoor industry. And I think in the last 7 years, we've come a long ways to doing that. There's companies that actually move here now for the support of the infrastructure that we've all helped build. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. And really what we wanted to do was to help these companies survive the desert of death. And that's from the time to launch to about $3 million or wherever you start to become sustainable, right? So many good product companies die in that desert of death. So we wanted to give them the support and resources that we could to get across that desert of death. So our target market, companies that can't afford us and don't have any money to pay, and then we don't charge them. Not the best business model. So, I think we have to take an altruistic approach to it. But being an entrepreneur, it's a lonely vacuum. So really what we wanted to do was to help break that vacuum, to give them the support from people that have been there and done it before, and really just help them not to make the same mistakes we've made. I know that sounds a little bit like a support group, but sometimes that's what we are. Okay, wrapping up. Anyhow, faith is not a line item, and it's hard to measure, but being an entrepreneur, you got to have it. Being an entrepreneur, you kind of live on the edge of state of exploration and in an edge, kind of on the edge of fear most of the time. It's like being in the backcountry in a whiteout and wondering where that trail is you're trying to find at the bottom, It's like being scuba diving in 6 inches of visibility and realizing you've got to trust your equipment and your process and your training to get through this, but it doesn't make that fear go away. You have to push through it. I worked with a guy one time who maybe didn't quite get my entrepreneurial spirit. And, he felt that maybe I didn't have all the steps of the plan figured out in this BOW thing, and that maybe I had 1, 2, and 3, and I knew where I was going, but he was really questioning 5, 6, and 7. And so he proceeded to tell me this story about how he skied moguls. And he says, I stop at the top of a mogul run, and I decide, and I make all my turns in my head on the way down the hill, and I know what I'm going to do before I get there. And I made a mental note never to go to the mountain with that guy. That sounded like hell. What a way to ruin a good powder run. I know my first couple runs, and I know where I'm coming out. And as an entrepreneur, you don't always know what happens in between. So anyhow, but I will make a note that Jamie, I've been on the hill with him, and that guy rips. So I think I threw my back out chasing him one time. So anyhow, don't get me wrong. We definitely have a thoughtful process that we follow at BOW. We really started with no intent for curriculum and then found out we had curriculum. So we kept going back to the same things. So we created that curriculum, but we tried to make the maximum amount of flexibility. So that's our story and kind of how we got here. BOW is now 7 years old. We were the first outdoor accelerator in the world. We were the first outdoor-specific funding event, to my knowledge, in the country. We've worked with 16 companies that their revenue now, annual revenue now represents over $20 million. They provide 85 plus jobs in this community and others, and lease or own over 50,000 square foot of space. So we're really proud of those statistics and what some of these companies have done. You guys may have heard, we've had a couple exits out of our alumni. Congrats to the Karen crew, who was acquired by Outside Media in the last year, so we're really stoked and proud for them. And congratulations to Picky Bars, who was acquired by Laird Superfoods in the last year. So again, super stoked and happy for them. What's coming up? Here's a couple for you to keep your eyes out on in case you missed out on Karen or Picky Bars, because never mind. But anyhow, keep your eyes out for Robert Axel, another alumni of ours. Congratulations to them. They've acquired Old Man Mountain, an accessories bike group, and just bought and moved into their first new building. So right on. I remember them at their dining room table and shipping out of their garage, so pretty stoked. I think a couple on the next list, too, would be Zelios and Heather's Choice. Keep your eyes out for them. They're growing and doing great things. Other announcements, we've hired a operations director now. We've grown up. We have actual employees. So Christy Dobson, I don't think she was able to make it here tonight, but hit her up. So she'll be handling the day-to-day operations. We've brought on new mentors. Meg Chun, I think I saw her around here somewhere tonight. So we're freshening the pool, Meg Chun from Kealoha. And we have a new application open for the spring 2022 cohort. So we're ready to rock. Thanks for listening.
Gary.
I guess I got to clean up my mess now.
No, you're fine. We've got people for that. Gary, this is just such a so wonderful learning more about BOW and hearing your stories. This is like the best fireside chat I've ever attended. Truly. Any questions from the audience for Gary? I think yes, Jarrell. No. Where can Jarrell find your application for the new cohort?
BendOutdoorWorx.com.
Outdoorworx.com.
You guys remember, I have a microphone in my hand, so be nice.
Mm-hmm. He's got a microphone and a whole mess of papers. Any other questions for Gary? Yes.
Gary, it was good speaking with you, but I'm over here.
There you are. I knew you were around somewhere.
Is there ever an opportunity just from the idea phase, or does things in order to get into the cohort have to be with some traction, prototyping,
Is there
straight up research?
Is there ever an opportunity to join the cohort when you're just at the idea phase, or do you actually have to have something kind of going?
Yeah, I mean, we prefer that people have gone to market and kind of launched. They felt their pain. They know some of their pain points, and we have more to work with in helping to scale them. In us scaling ourselves, I do hope that in the future we can add other cohorts that aren't just post-revenue, that may be more earlier stage, concept stage, collegiate stage. So
Cool,
hopefully.
because I've got an idea for a product called Sled Ass that I know is going to be huge. Who else wants to know what Jamie's idea is? Any other questions out in the audience tonight? It's a real idea, you guys. It'll revolutionize your commute. Hit me up. Any other questions? Aaron, do we have any from online? Looks like your hand is going. All right. Do you have any favorites? Favorites like companies that you've worked with, I'm assuming, right? Besides Jarrell.
Well, that's where I was going. It's like favorites. Wow, that's an open category. But as far as companies we've worked with, I mean, you know, you love them all. You learn so much from them. They inspire us. That's why I think we keep doing it. You know, I have to say one that I'm probably most proud of is Robert Axel. I mean, they have done so much with, you know, so little, and they've grown organically and under the radar, and yeah, it's really cool.
It's very cool. And Aaron, we have another question from Aaron.
Now that you have had some successful exits, do you or will you call on them to come back through as mentors?
So now that you've had some successful exits, will you call on them to come back as mentors and to help grow the program?
Oh, for sure. And of course, we already have. And really, one of the biggest challenges is just how deep they're into their own businesses right now. And you kind of have to be at a point in your life where you have the time to give back to this cause. And when you're running a business every day, it does make it tough. But they'll be right at the top of our pool for sure.
Gary, have you thought about going into the dating pool? Like market, you know, events. Seems like there's a lot of great people in your community. I mean, you know what? We'll talk later. Aaron, question from Aaron. Question from Aaron.
I'm not good with apps, so
Neither am I.
I'd be in trouble.
Aaron. Breakout Venture Out is going to make a comeback.
Thank you very much. You're talking about our event. Yes, we are talking about in 2022, we will run a new cohort and hopefully by the end of the year propose some type of new event for 2022. I do expect it to change, to evolve. Probably won't be exactly what it was. Hopefully it'll be cooler and better.
And more money?
Maybe no money.
Maybe no money.
Maybe a lot more
Oh my
money.
God.
I don't know.
Wow, Gary's really evolving
We'll see.
rapidly.
We'll
Gary
see.
is evolving rapidly. I like
Evolve
it.
or devolve?
Evolving. The millennials are going to love you, Gary. Hey, thanks so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us tonight. This was just awesome. I really appreciate you.
Thanks.
Oh, and before you go, Gary, before you go, I do have a present for you. So it's our tradition. We give you the PubTalk Stein. You can fill it with 14 beers, and Jarrell can give you a ride home.
This is the only reason I actually came up here tonight. I thought it was smart of him not to give it to me till I actually spoke.
So you are a businessman, Gary. Okay, I see.